Hare Krishna, everyone. Good evening to you all. Welcome to this evening's Srimad class, live streaming from home. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Text 6, and Chapter 17. So, actually Chapter 18. We're just going to be continuing from yesterday's class, and it is about universal creation, and the chapter deals with Vidur asking Sage Maitreya about the universal creation. So we'll just continue. So to start off with, welcome to all our viewers on Mayapur TV and ISKCON Sydney YouTube. We'll sing a little bit of Radha, Jai Radha Madhav, then Mangal Charan, and get started. Hopefully, I can talk a little bit afterwards, since the texts are a little bit shorter. So hopefully, we can have a longer discussion later on. Let's see how we go. So, Hare Krishna, Jai Radha Madhav. Kunjari Jaya Radha Madhav Kunja Bihari Jaya Vijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yashwanda Braja Jana Rajana Yashanandana Braja Randa Yamuna Tiravayari Yamuna Tiravanichari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanichari Yamuna Tiravanichari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivracharya Asutra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Chandarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय. श्री श्री राधे कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम पूर्ण राधा कुंड गिर गोवर्धन की जय. वृंदावन धाम की जय. मथुरा धाम की जय. श्री नवदीप धाम की जय. यमुना माई की जय. श्रीमती तुलसी देवी की जय. सामवेद भक्तवृंद की जय. निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Veer Krishna Goswami Niti Namne Namo Hamsa Nikashaya Prabhupada Priyate Shuddha Shuddhi Nishta Vem Tasya Vakya Nuvadine. Hare Krishna. So give me a second, I'll put away my mridanga and I'll be back with you in just a minute. Okay, so welcome back. Good evening and Hare Krishna to all our viewers. Hopefully, you can hear me nice and clear. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nasta Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay, so just to have a little recap of yesterday, Vidur, who is the incarnation of Yamaraj, and Yamaraj, as we know, is the Lord of Death, and he's also Dharma. So he dishes out the punishment for sinners when they leave this planet, or when they leave their bodies. And so he incarnates as Vidur in the Mahabharata, and he is the brother of Dhritarashtra and the son of one of the maidservants. So and so what happens is he's being insulted, and so he goes on pilgrimage, and on his way he meets with Uddhav, who is Lord Krishna's dear devotee, cousin, and child. And Uddhav spends most of his life in Krishna's association until the time that Krishna leaves his body from this planet. So Uddhav is a very important devotee. And so Vidur asks him all these questions, and after asking Uddhav these questions, he proceeds. When Uddhav leaves for Badrik Ashram, then Vidur proceeds to question Sage Maitreya. Now, Sage Maitreya is the disciple of Vyasadeva, Parashar Muni, who is the father of Vyasadeva. So Maitreya is quite an elevated soul, and he has questions. He has all this knowledge. He was there when Lord Krishna was imparting knowledge to Uddhav, and Sage Maitreya had made his way to the banks of the river, where Lord Krishna was imparting this knowledge, final knowledge, to Uddhav. So he sat there and he listened, and so now he is imparting that knowledge to Vidur, who is a Mahajan. He has been speaking in the last class. We've been talking about the Supreme Lord Krishna, who manifests his universal form, which is the Virat Roop. And as he is manifesting certain organs of his body, certain deities, demigods, they appear in charge of those senses, and then imparts it to us. We get the ability to hear and listen. So the last class was where the Virat Roop had manifested the ears. So when he had manifested the ears, then the controlling deities, I will just move my iPad so it doesn't look like I'm actually reading from my iPad. All the controlling deities of all directions entered into his ears, the ears by which all living entities can hear. So that was the last part. Now we are going to be, I might just move this here so it might be a bit better. So when there was, so we are on Canto 3.6.18. I'll just read a little bit of the translation. When there was a separate manifestation, the controlling deities of sensations, so the controlling deities of sensations, and their different parted into it, and thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to due to touch, so we can feel the touch. So just remove the noise so that we don't hear any noise coming from the phone. So for sense perception, there are two principal items, sections. One is the touch, the other one is the itching, and both of them are controlled by the skin and the body. According to Sri Vishwanath Thakur, the controlling deity of touch is the air passing within the body. It's the air that's passing within the body, and the controlling deity of the hairs on the body is Oshadya. So if you wanted to know, there's actually a deity for everything, all parts of the body. 33 million demigods. So it's like the controlling deity of the hairs on the body. So there's a deity that controls the hairs on our body, and that deity's name is Oshadya. For the skin, the object of perception is touch, and for the hairs on the body, the object of perception is itching. So for the skin, it's touch, and for the hairs, the tiny hairs that's there, or the hairs, it is itching. So this is very interesting. It's Srimad Bhagavad Canto 3.6.18 that I'm reading from. Okay, so the next text is when the Virat Roop, when the of the gigantic form separately become manifest. Then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them partial semen, and thus the living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. And so the text continues. There is no purport. Chapter Srimad Bhagavatam 3.6.19. And then 0.20, the evacuating channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with parts of evacuation. So there is a deity for our evacuation organs, and that deity, or that controlling demigod, is known as Mitra. So if you really wanted to know various parts, just read the Srimad Bhagavatam and you will know various part of the bodies and which demigod to worship for that. So thus the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. And thereafter, after that, when the hands of the gigantic form separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them. And thus, the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. So, when the hands of the gigantic Virat Roop, and the ruling deity of that is Lord Indra. That's the ruler of the heavenly planets, and we are able to do business for his livelihood. That's quite good. And then after that, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest. So who's the demigod of the legs? The demigod Vishnu, named Vishnu. Not the personality of Godhead, this is a different Vishnu, entered into the partial movement. So I'll read that bit again. Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination. So it became manifest, and his guidance, Vedas, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with partial power of understanding. Partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living. So that's how we get our understanding. It's really interesting. So the next bit is after that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested in the self. The gigantic form obviously being the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Virat Roop. Which the Virat Roop obviously is the roop that Lord Krishna showed to Arjun on the battle field of Kurukshetra, just beginning in the beginning of the war, because Arjun didn't want to fight, and so he needed some guidance, and so Lord Krishna said, "I'm God," and then Krishna showed him the universal form. So this is the same exact universal form that we are talking about here. After that, the heart of the giant separately itself, and into it moved the demigod being and aspects. Interesting, because it's the heart, and then it's got mental things, mental abilities. It's written here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3.6.24. So now we go on to 3.6.25. Thereafter, the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself. The materialistic ego. So that's not really very good news. When the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra. Rudra is a controller of false ego, with his own partial activities by which the living entity transacts his objective actions. So there is a purport for this. The false ego of materialistic identity is controlled by the demigod Rudra, and that's an incarnation of Lord Shiva. So Rudra is incarnation of Lord Shiva, and the incarnation also of the Supreme Lord who controls the mode of ignorance with material nature. The Lord of the mode of ignorance is Lord Shiva. And so the activities of the four are based on the of the body. Lord mostly thinks of himself, Supreme Lord. Egoistic conviction of the conditioned soul is the last snare of illusory energy which controls the entire material world. That's why you find so many demons. They will be worshipping Lord Shiva, the mode of ignorance, the Lord of the mode of ignorance. I mean, Ravan was a devotee of Shiva, and he got many boons. He also got a curse from Lord Shiva, but he also got boons. He got the Trishula from his trident from Lord Shiva. So thereafter, when his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy Mahatattva entered into the conscious part. Thus, entity is able to conceive specific knowledge. Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, excuse me, got a bit of cough. Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested. And from his legs, the earthly planets. So the heavenly planets, they come from the head of the gigantic form. The earthly planets, they come from the legs. So our planet comes from the legs of the universe. And from his abdomen, the sky separately manifested themselves. With them, the demigods and others were also manifested in terms of the modes of material nature. So from there, text 3.6.28, the demigods, called by the super excellent quality of the modes, are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, which is us, hopefully we are a human being. So because of their nature in the mode of passion, we live on earth in the company in company with their subordinates. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 14 to 15, it is said that those who are highly developed in the mode of goodness are promoted to high heavenly planetary system. And those who are overpowered by the mode of passion are situated in the middle systems, which is the Earth and similar planets. So they are planets which are similar to Earth in the middle system, the middle planetary system. So the higher planetary systems would have the heavenly planets, and people who are in the mode of goodness reside in the heavenly planets. So that actually teaches us something, that we should aspire to go beyond the mode of goodness, because that would be the mode of transcendence. Like if we, in the mode of spiritual nature, transcend the three modes of nature, and then we can rise above the heavenly planets and go to Goloka Vrindavan or any of the Vaikuntha planets. So even the mode of goodness is not the mode to be aspired to, although it is the most ideal mode to accept in this on this planet, because that will promote our bhakti and our sadhana. However, we need to transcend even that and the false ego and all of that in order to achieve the spiritual form and spiritual kingdom. So coming back to where we were, but those who are surcharged with the mode of ignorance are degraded to the lower planetary systems or to the animal kingdom. This is to do with those of us, human beings who are really living like animals, and so they get granted the animal kingdom. And obviously they are human beings who aspire to do sinful activities which require punishment. So they are hellish planets for them also. And if you really want to know about the hellish planets, there are different types of hellish planets depending on the nature of sin that one has committed. And all of that is written in Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5. So if you happen to know of somebody who is, or someone, or have read in the news of something that's, a sinful person has done such and such, what would be the result of their karma or their actions? Read the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5. It is actually quite frightening. And I rarely read it. In fact, I must have only read it once or twice, possibly for references, but I prefer never to read it. And during preaching, we don't tell people, that if you did this, this is where you're going to go. Like, for example, people who drink liquor, there's a hellish planet for that. For example, there's people who murder, obviously, or do things, to animals, eat animals. There's a hell of that. Illicit sex life for those of us or those human beings who are practicing illicit sex life, like prostitutes or something. They have a separate hell. And there's a whole list, a whole bunch of crimes. So they are the lower planets. That's what we are sort of going by. The higher planets, the middle planets. So we are kind of in the middle, and we really want to aspire even higher than the higher planets. We want to go straight to Krishna. So the demigods are highly developed in the mode of goodness, and thus they are situated in the heavenly planets. Below the human beings are animals, obviously, although some of them mingle with human society, like, for example, cows, horses, dogs, etc., are habituated to living under the protection of human beings. That's true. I mean, we keep pets like dogs and cats, and we worship the cow. So they do live under the protection of humans. The word ayantikena is very significant in this verse. By development of mode of goodness of material nature, one can become situated in the heavenly planets. But by excessive development of modes of passion and ignorance, the human beings indulges in killing the animals. So here we go, killing the animals who are meant to be protected by mankind. This is actually what I was trying to explain to some people at my work. They asked me why I was vegetarian, and I said, well, if an animal is hungry, If a dog or a cat is hungry, they'll come to a human being. Why do they come to a human being? Is because they want food, and they want food from a human. So they are actually looking for protection from a human, from humans in general. The same goes for any other animal, whether it be chickens or lamb or sheep. They rely on if they don't have any, they'll come to human beings. In other words, they look towards the human beings for protection. And it is the biggest sin and betrayal of trust that the animal places on the human beings for protection. The very human slices their neck and eats them for dinner or lunch or whatever. So it is the greatest of sins that someone or an animal comes under the protection of a human being, and they get killed and eaten as a result. And really the compassion that needs to be hearts for animals defenseless to be there, but it's not, because that understanding has the intelligence has gone, that we human beings, we are supposed to be protecting, we're supposed to be protecting all animals, because they look towards human beings for protection. They don't look at human beings to be eaten. And so it is really sad demise situation for these animals, that that the trust that they place on human beings is violated, and they get slaughtered, they get eaten. It is really traumatic to even explain it. Once I started explaining that to my workmates, they felt very bad. So I stopped explaining it in that way. But really it is an act of kindness and compassion to other living entities, that we don't eat them because they look towards us for compassion. A cat who is hungry will come to us for food. We're not going to make it food by eating it. So it's really a huge sin and a huge crime that we animals must never eat animals. Never. It's a huge. So anyway, continuing from there, persons who indulge in unnecessary animal killing have excessively developed in the modes of passion and ignorance, have no hope. They have no hope of advancing the mode of goodness. That is why when in the Hare Krishna movement, when we preach of Krishna, the first things we say is try to be vegetarian. Because if you're not vegetarian, then developing the mode of goodness is impossible. And without the mode of goodness, then there is no point in doing bhakti, because Lord Krishna is only achieved through the mode, via the mode of goodness. So vegetarian is very important. It's essential. So and that therein lies a problem, because it's very rarely in the beginning, no one understands that they have to be vegetarian and be kind to animals and not be cruel and not to eat them. It's somebody's life, it's blood that they're ingesting, somebody's blood, somebody's flesh. So continuing from there, they're destined to be degraded to lower status of life. So after life, those who eat animals they'll have degraded forms of life. The very basis of this is that we try to explain that we are the soul, we are not the body. This body is here temporarily. Before I was born, I was occupying another body somewhere. And if I don't make it to Godhead, I'm going to be occupying another body. So it depends on my karma in this life that will determine my next body. And the greatest offense, obviously, is Vaishnava Prad. So we've got to not offend devotees. Vaishnav or Vaishnaviya Prad. So it's always have to bear in mind that we never blaspheme devotees. We never hurt devotees. And we don't kill animals. We don't eat animals. In other words, we observe the four regulative principles: no meat, no fish, no eggs, no alcohol, no illicit sex life, no gambling, because these are the very basis which will enable a person to take a degraded form of life in the next birth, let alone achieve the mode of goodness. So no amount of chanting, well, chanting will help, obviously. It will purify you, and hopefully you gradually leave this, meat eating and the rest of it. um, but if you are adamant and stubborn and continue doing those things while you are chanting, there's no point there is no hope for advancement, in other words, in spiritual life. So you've got to, the chanting and the four regulative principles, they go hand in hand. If you don't do one, then the other will obviously be, it won't get you anywhere. And in order to get shelter from a bona fide spiritual master, in other words, initiation, you have to be able to follow the four regulative principles and chant your 16 rounds minimum anyway. So it kind of all like makes sense. So obviously we've all had our own pace, at our own speed with which we can achieve these things. However, it's better to move forward rather than backwards. For example, if we eat meat today, then we become vegetarian tomorrow, and then again on the third day we go back to meat. Then there is no, we are not moving forward. That's the whole point. So we always must aspire to move forward and improve every day. My experience is my spiritual master demanded 16 rounds from the day he met me. So I had to fly from zero rounds to 16 overnight just to please him, and I did it. It took me half of morning, from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. and I was a university student and I did it. In fact, he said in the summertime when I come, so there was a lot of time till the next summer in New Zealand, said there'll be some initiation. So I had to work really hard. By summertime, I had to prepare myself for initiation, and I had things I had to leave. It was an effort, but it can be done. That's my whole point, is it can be done if you're strong enough and if you're determined enough. And I took my initiation not for me, but to please my spiritual master. So I became like a 16 round chanter to please him, and I took my initiation to please him also. There has to be a goal why you do certain things. So anyway, everybody has their own motivation, and my spiritual master was mine. Anyway, it is all a gradual process, and we should aspire to improve rather than take step back. So continuing from there, they are destined to be degraded in lower status of life if human beings start behaving like animals. The planetary systems are calculated as upper and lower in terms of the classes of living entities who live there. So, continuing, living entities who are associates of Rudra develop in the third mode of material nature, or ignorance. They develop in the mode of ignorance. They are situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets. So this is quite interesting, something new for me today. The living entities who are associates of Rudra develop in the third mode of material nature, or ignorance. They are actually situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets. So they are in between the earthly and heavenly. That's where they live. So that's interesting. This middle portion of the sky is called Bhuvarloka. As confirmed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that those who develop in the mode of passion are situated in the middle region. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness are promoted in the regions of the demigods. Those who are situated in the mode of passion are placed in the human society, and those who are situated in the mode of ignorance are placed in the society of animals or ghosts. So there are no contradictions in this conclusion. Numerous living entities are distributed all over the universe in different planets, and so situated in terms of their own qualities and mode of material nature. Okay, so going to text 30, we are progressing fast. So then Sage Maitreya addresses Vidur, O chief of the Kuru dynasty. Give me a minute. Got something pop up on my screen. O chief of the Kuru dynasty, the Vedic wisdom became manifested from the mouth of the Virat, the gigantic form. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmins, and they are natural teachers and spiritual masters of all orders of the society. So our spiritual masters, they are Brahmins, and they are natural teachers and they're spiritual masters of the orders of the society. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.13, the four orders of human society develop within the order of the body of the develop with the order of the body of the gigantic form. So the bodily divisions are the mouth, the arms, the waist, and the legs. Four. The mouth, the arms, the waist, and the legs. And those who are situated in the mouth are called Brahmins. Those who are situated in the arms are called Kshatriyas, and those who are situated in the waist are called Vaishyas, and those who are situated in the legs are called Shudras. And everyone is situated in the body of the Supreme in his gigantic Vishwarupa form. In terms of the four orders, therefore, no caste is to be considered degraded because of being situated on a particular part of the body. So we can't really look down upon a Shudra or a Vaishya. We are all situated in the Virat Roop. So no one is to be degraded. Because in India, there is still the caste system where the Shudras are looked down upon. They're not supposed to do that. So everyone, so in terms of the four orders, therefore, is not to be considered degraded because of being situated in a particular part of the body. In our own bodies, we do not show any actual difference in our treatment towards the hands or the legs. Exactly. We don't show any difference to our legs or our hands. It is all part of our body. We don't degrade any part of our body. So each and every part of the body is important, although the mouth is the most important of bodily parts. In other parts are cut off from the body, if other parts are cut off from the body, a man can continue his life. But if the mouth is cut off, one cannot live. Therefore, the most important part of the body of the Lord is called a sitting place of the Brahmins. So the Brahmins are the most important. Although no one is degraded, who are because the Brahmins are inclined to the Vedic wisdom. So one who is not inclined to the Vedic wisdom but to mundane affairs cannot be called a Brahmin. So even if he is born of a Brahmin family or father. So there are some, we devotees, we take Brahmin initiation. And we are supposed to be Brahmins. Although in Kali Yuga it is said that there is no really proper Brahmin as such. Although we do aspire. And so therefore we have to, as a Brahmin, we are, it is our duty to impart Vedic wisdom and read Srila Prabhupada's books. That is what I was told actually when I had taken my Brahmin initiation, and the question I asked was, what should I do as a Brahmin now? Because I was thinking that the temple where I took the Brahmin initiation, they needed a pujari because there were not many pujaris there. So I took initiation for that reason. And besides, I hadn't taken Brahmin initiation. I should have done a while ago. I hadn't done so. So anyway, then I asked this question: what does a Brahmin do? What am I as a Brahmin? What am I supposed to do? As a Brahmin, I'm supposed to do more reading and Vedic literature. That's what I was told, and impart this knowledge. So that's what I'm doing today. In fact, my spiritual master gave me all these books that I'm reading out to you today. So it is not really my own; it's via him. And it becomes our duty to impart Vedic knowledge. Hence, I'm reading the Srimad Bhagavatam today, which has been given to me by him. So, So to have a Brahmin father does not qualify one as a Brahmin. Actually, it's your deeds, your activities. It's got to be Brahmin. Otherwise, you are not a Brahmin. Sometimes a Brahmin is tested by Lord Krishna, and in that challenge, in that test, one must choose whether to do this or do that. So that is a real challenge, and we get tested over and over. We get tested over and over and over and over, and it is our actions and our choice that determines whether we remain a Brahmin or we don't. So the main qualification of a Brahmin is to be inclined in Vedic wisdom, as we just said. The Vedas are situated in the mouth of the Lord, and therefore anyone who is inclined to Vedic wisdom is certainly situated in the mouth of the Lord, and he is a Brahmin. This inclination towards Vedic wisdom is also not restricted to any particular caste or community. Anyone from any family and from any part of the world may become inclined to Vedic wisdom, and that will qualify him as a real Brahmin. And this is what Srila Prabhupada had said. And that's why when he went out to the West, he gave Brahmin initiation to Westerners. And they are better Brahmins than anyone that I know of or have met. Because they practice everything. They practice the sadhana bhakti very strictly, very they're properly trained by Srila Prabhupada, who's an expert, and they do it with love. Whereas those who are born Brahmins, say for example in India, they come with a lot of preconceived ideas, and some of them are misconstrued and are false. So then their practice doesn't become, their practice is not so proper, for want of a word, by comparison to those who have been strictly trained by Srila Prabhupada in the Western world. So they make, I'm not really degrading any Brahmins of India by on any account. What I'm saying is that as per this purport here, it says anyone from any family, from any part of the world, who may be inclined to the Vedic wisdom, that will qualify him as a real Brahmin. So it is not wearing the janu or the sacred thread that makes you a Brahmin. You have to have the Vedic wisdom, the intelligence, the knowledge, but you also have to practice those knowledge things. Like in other words, the chanting, the four regulative principles, all of those things. Not to harm animals, not to commit Vaishnava Prad. So that will qualify one as a Brahmin. So it can be anyone according to this purport, provided you practice. So a real Brahmin is a natural teacher or spiritual master. Unless one has Vedic knowledge, one cannot become a spiritual master. The perfect knowledge of the Vedas is to know the Lord. So that's what Vedas are, to know the Lord, the personality of Godhead. And that is the end of Vedic knowledge or Vedanta. One who is situated in the impersonal Brahman and has no information of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may become a Brahman, but he cannot become a spiritual master. It is said in the Padma Purana, Sat Karma Nipuno Vipro, Mantra Tantra Visharadha, a Vaishnavo Guru Nashad, Vaishnavaha Swa Pacho Guru. The translation: an impersonalist can become a qualified Brahman, but he cannot become a spiritual master unless and until he is promoted to the stage of Vaishnava, or a devotee of the personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya, the great authority of Vedic wisdom in the modern age, stated, Kiva Vipra Kiva Nyasi, Shudra Kene Naya, Ye Krishna Tattva Vetta Say Guru Haya. The translation of that: a person may be a Brahman or a Shudra or a sannyasi, but if he happens to be well versed in the science of Krishna, then he is fit to become spiritual master. This is in Chaitanya Charamrita, Madhya Lila 8.128. The qualification then of a spiritual master is not to be a qualified Brahman, but to be well versed in the science of Krishna. So one who is conversant with Vedic wisdom is a Brahmin. One who knows Krishna is a spiritual master, according to Lord Chaitanya. And only a Brahmin who is pure Vaishnava and knows all the intricacies of the science of Krishna can become a spiritual master. So interesting. Okay. So continuing from thereafter, the power of protection of was generated from the arms of the gigantic Virat form, the power of protection from the arms of the Virat form. And in relation to such power, the Kshatriyas also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principle of protecting society from the disturbance of thieves and miscreants. So the power of protection is given to the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas' principle of protecting the society from disturbances and thieves and miscreants. So we need Kshatriyas. We actually need all four orders of life. Um, so let's see what else is there. That's a very long purport here. But I'll just give you a little bit of an example of who is a Kshatriya. Maharaj Yudhishthir and his grandson Maharaj Parikshit, they were typical Kshatriyas. They're Kshatriya kings. And for they gave protection to all men and animals. Actually, anyone who has the inclination of giving protection to someone has Kshatriya qualities, tendencies. So those who are protecting our cows, they are not just tending to the cows, they're protecting the cows, they're Kshatriyas. So when the personification of Kali attempted to kill a cow, Maharaj Parikshit at once prepared to himself to kill the miscreant. And the personification of Kali was banished from his kingdom. That is a sign of Purusha or representative of Lord Vishnu. According to Vedic civilization, a qualified Kshatriya monarch is given respect of the Lord because he represents the Lord by protection to the prajas. Modern elected presidents cannot give protection from theft cases. So they are not Kshatriyas. And therefore, one has to take protection from an insurance company. This is the purport from Srila Prabhupada. The problems of modern human society are due to the lack of qualified Brahmins and Kshatriyas and the over-influence of Vaishyas and Shudras by so-called general franchise. So a lot of our parliamentarians are basically Vaishyas and Shudras instead of being Brahmins or Kshatriyas, protecting the society and giving Vedic knowledge. Not many of those in our government. And that is why there's chaos in our society. And that's why we preach Krishna conscious, so that we learn about Vedic knowledge. And that is why we are given the Srimad Bhagavatam, to increase our knowledge. And that is why we listen to classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. Because our government, our countries are not competent enough to give us this knowledge, to give us this kind of protection. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has developed the Krishna conscious movement so that we may be able to spread the knowledge and protect each other and protect the society. So the means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and the distribution of prajas, were generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas, businessmen. So human society means of living is clearly mentioned here as Vaishya or agriculture, and the business of distributing agricultural products, which involve transport, banking, etc. industry, is an artificial means of livelihood and a large-scale industry, especially the source of all problems of society. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the duties of the Vaishyas who are engaged in Visha are stated as cow protection, agriculture, and business. We have already discussed that a human being can safely depend on the cow and agriculture for his livelihood. So we'll just continue from there to text 33. We've got like 10 minutes to finish the rest of the chapter. So thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality for the sake of perfecting the religious functions. Situated on the legs are Shudras who satisfy the Lord by service. So service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. Actually, we are servants too of Lord Krishna. We should aspire to be servants of Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Srila Prabhupada, or our spiritual masters, or the Vaishnavas, servants of the Vaishnavas. That's our constitutional position, to be of service. The living entities are meant to render service to the Lord, and they can attain religious perfection by this service attitude. One cannot attain religious perfection simply by speculation to attain the theoretical knowledge. So if one is just keeps reading the books and reads and reads and reads and doesn't do any service to anybody whatsoever, well, they have ways to go. They cannot really achieve this religious perfection. So general theory is okay, but the application is more important. Practicing sadhana bhakti yoga, practicing Krishna conscious is most important. Devotional service, chanting, association of devotees, living near the dham, worshipping the deity, devotee, kirtans, japa, hearing the pastimes of the Lord, surrendering to the Lord, all of those things. So the Jnani division of spirituals go on speculating only to distinguish the soul from the meta, but they have no information of the activities of the soul after being liberated by knowledge. It is said that the persons who only mentally speculate to know things as they are, but who do not engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, are simply wasting their time. So we really need to be practicing it. Become vegetarians, take prasadam, chant Hare Krishna, listen to Srimad Bhagavatam or Leelas, activities of the Lord, associate with devotees, live near the temple or have a temple in your house, worship Lord Krishna, serve the Vaishnavas, help each other, not blaspheme each other, help each other. So in the material world, no one wants to be a servant. That's true. No one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become the master. They do not want to be controlled. Because of false mastership in the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others, wants to be the boss. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, he is forced to become a servant of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last snare of illusory external energy is the conception of becoming one with the Lord due to this conception of illusion. Soul remains in the bondage. We become like bonded to material energy, falsely thinking himself as a liberated soul and as good as Narayan. Just give me a minute. So it is actually better to be a Shudra than to be a Brahman and not develop service attitude. It's true. Shudra will have natural tendencies to be of service to the Lord, definitely. So every living being, even if he be a Brahmin by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Both Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam support this service attitude is the perfection of living entity. A Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra can perfect his occupational duties only by rendering service unto the Lord. Service, devotional service, is the secret to being an advanced devotee of the Lord Krishna. So if you want to know what is the secret, it is service, developing a service attitude. It has to come naturally. It's something that is not forced. You just have to have that attitude of service. Actually, you will find, if you speak to those devotees who have become Krishna conscious, how they advanced in spiritual path, in their spiritual life. All of them, 100% of them will say that we're doing some service, not to Lord Krishna directly, but to a Vaishnav, to a devotee. We served such and such devotee in this way, and then we advanced. That's how it actually is. All of them will tell you that they were of certain service to a Vaishnav, and they through serving a Vaishnav or Vaishnavi, because devotees of Lord Krishna doesn't know any agenda or doesn't know any gender, no male or no female. They're all devotees alike. So if we happen to serve a devotee of Lord Krishna, whether they are a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi, we end up advancing spiritually. And many devotees will say, "Oh well, it is through a certain this Vaishnav that I met my spiritual master." Or it is due to a certain this Vaishnavi I met my spiritual master. I met my spiritual master via a Vaishnavi in New Zealand. So it is by rendering service. I had helped her in certain activities in the temple, and she needed help with transport. I drove her around. I drove her around, and then I started driving around in my spiritual master's car for a little while, and then I got initiated. So it's very interesting progress. But it all happens when we serve a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi, that we advance spiritually. So it's just a very interesting way of looking at it. But that's like we must actually become perfect human beings simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Lord. Okay, so text 34. All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of a spiritual master. So these deities that are behind me, I was offered these deities for service, and I refused, only because I'd just been initiated 5 minutes ago, and I had no knowledge of worshipping deities, and I knew that I'm not supposed to worship the Radha Krishna deities without the permission of the spiritual master, without the guidance of the spiritual master. And I was only first initiated anyway. Normally, Brahmin initiated are qualified to look after deities of Radha and Krishna. Most of the devotees, they tend to worship Gauranitai because they are really very kind and merciful, and the offenses are not as much. But with the worship of Radha Krishna deities, the offenses are great. So I had actually refused, but that night in my dream, my spiritual master came and said, "Just take them and you'll be fine." So I had to pick up the phone and ring my god sister, who had been asking me to look after the deities because she was about to have a baby, and she said the deities are in a box, and she's accumulating karma, bad karma. And she said, so I had, that's why she was giving them to me, and so I had to ring her back, and I said, yeah, I will take them. And so they've been with me since. So I've been, like, it's been 20 years, or how many, 15, more than 15 years, yeah, around 15, 16 years that these diseases have been with me. So, and they've been with me ever since, and I've taken care of them. But it is under the guidance of the spiritual master that we look after these deities. Let's continue. It's already 8:30, so I'm just gonna read a little bit and then conclude. So, O Vidur, who can estimate the measure of transcendental time, work, and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I'm now describing the glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. Actually, that's true. Devotees, they are actually empowered to speak. So I'm able to speak or impart this knowledge because of the empowerment given to me by my spiritual master and the Guru Parampara before him. In other words, it's very difficult to be able to achieve certain service without the blessings of the spiritual master, and the empowerment comes from them. Actually, it's not really our own. And I have spoken to, discussed classes with a lot of devotees outside, and that's all what I have said every single time. Actually, my knowledge is very limited. It all comes from these books and through the blessings of the spiritual master. It's really not my own. Never has been. So otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. Um, okay, so continuing from there, text 37, the highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the year is served by being near them, which is really nice. The purpose of our ears is to hear the glorification of the Lord, and the purpose of our eyes is to see the beautiful form of our deities, Lord Krishna, Lord Ramsundar, Radha Krishna, Radha Gopinath. And that's, if we are able to see them with these eyes, then the real purpose of the eyes is served. If we're able to hear the glorification of the Lord, then the real purpose of our ears is served, and the rest of our senses, by the way. So if you use the rest of the senses in nonsensical things, then obviously your senses are not being used for what they've been given to you for. So in other words, um, you know you can imagine what kind of nonsense things the senses can enjoy. It is that does Krishna. Obviously, your senses are not meant for those things, and you're not utilizing your senses for the purpose that they've been given to you, according to this purport. So, continuing from there, we're almost finishing. Oh, my son, the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1000 celestial years, could only know or could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. Actually, no one can understand the Supreme Lord. We can kind of know a little bit, very small essence, but no one actually knows. So we'll just continue from there, text 39. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering, even to the jugglers. That potential power is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others. Continuing, we are last text, I believe. Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve the success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto Him as a matter of sanity. So, the froggish calculator may rise the notion that if the absolute is unknowable even by controlling deities of speech, mind, and ego, namely the Vedas, Brahma, and Rudra, and all demigods headed by Brahaspati, then why should devotees be so interested in this unknown object? If we can't know him, and if it's unknown, why should we even bother? That's the question. The answer is that the transcendental ecstasy enjoyed by the devotees in delineating the pastimes of Lord is certainly unknown to non-devotees and mental speculators. Unless one relishes the transcendental joy, naturally one will come back from his speculations and concocted conclusions, because he will see them as neither factual nor enjoyable. In fact, the slightest bit of Krishna consciousness, the taste is full of such ecstasy that everything else is mundane. And it is said, this is a conclusion of the entire chapter, is that once you become a devotee, you get a taste of spiritual ecstasy, or you get a taste of spiritual nectar. You pretty much spoil to enjoy material life. And very often you will say, well, no, these Hare Krishnas, outsiders, non-devotees will say, these Hare Krishnas, they don't know how to have fun. They don't know how to have fun. What they don't know is that the Hare Krishnas are experiencing, the Vaishnavas, they are actually experiencing the highest form of fun. In fact, we know ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, which is beyond material conception. So if you really want to know the Hare Krishnas are having fun or not, they are having actually the most fun. It is a fact. That is why we say that, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. All of a sudden, they say, well, Syamapriya Mataji is really, really happy. What has she done that she's really happy? It's probably because I chanted 108 rounds that I'm walking around feeling ecstasy or happiness. Obviously, this is just a joke. But the whole answer Is it a devotee becomes happy because they eliminate material pollutions out of their mind, out of their life. So there are certain material pollutions that we work on, and we get rid of that, and we become really happy, we become very free. And that's really the source of our happiness. And they say, what did you do to become so happy today? We can say we chanted, and they'll say, we chanted also, but we're really not happy, we're not that happy. Well, then you grab hold of them and say, well, did you let go of this particular material nonsense that you were doing, or this material let's say attachment that gives you pain. So what gives you the most pain is actually a material attachment. Like, for example, a small example, for a mother, they are really attached to their child. If something happens to the child, the mother will cry and be morose and upset and depressed, be terrified because of the attachment to the child. So if one is attached to a certain material thing, object, or activity, or whatever it is, then that gives them pain, gives them a lot of pain. So once you let go of that material attachment or material object, you become really free, and you become happy, really happy. And so where is that happiness coming from? Well, the happiness is coming from letting go of those things that give you pain, and attaching yourself to those things that give you happiness. So that really is the secret of happiness, is to imbibe uh, attachment to everything dealing with Lord Krishna, or everything that's dealing with spiritual. And certainly letting go of material attachments will remove the unhappiness out of your life. And it really comes with chanting also, the purification of the heart. And that really is the secret to happiness. If anybody ever wants to know what is the secret to happiness, the secret to happiness is letting go of material attachments. Let go of material attachments, just let it go, and you'll be happy. Obviously, that doesn't mean a mother should leave the child. Never do that. You have duty, as a parent, to protect and develop and look after a child. So, and it is a duty of a parent to make sure that the child becomes Krishna conscious one day. So we are actually over our time by 10 minutes, I think. Let me just see if that is the last text, and then we shall conclude. Yes, that was. So that ends our class for this evening. Thank you so much for listening, having the patience to listen to this class. Srimad Bhagavatam Puran Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. And good evening to you all.